And we're live.
We are. Let me just start with this brief warning to this topic of what we're going to talk about basically is about the incidents of the concentration camps of Muslims in Uighur, China, which is in the Xinjiang region, I believe. I don't know if I said that right. I probably butchered the name, but I'm just gonna. It's in China.
It's a
Everyone knows it's
sensitive topic.
It is.
If
It
it's
is.
rough for you, don't click on
Now,
it. Don't continue
throughout
watching.
history, we learned a lot about the concentration camp of the Jewish people during Nazi Germany, right? And the world has completely, like to this day, it's they just talk about it on, and like it goes. Not that there's anything wrong with that, right? But it feels as though the world has turned a blind eye to what has been going down in China. So I have today on the show Miss Jewher, who is she's talked to the UN about this. I believe she's, an advocate for the rights of these Muslims in China. So, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you.
I've been wanting to do this for a long time, and I'm glad we finally found someone like you to come on, and especially you because you really have been fighting hard to get them there, right? So, yeah, let's talk about it. What what is going on? When did this start? How did this
Mhm.
start?
Well, first of all, I want to thank Ali for having me today. My name is Johar Ilham, and I am Uighur. I have one of the reason that I am doing this now, or let's say advocating for the Uyghurs.
Mm-hmm.
One of the reasons because personally, I have my father who is now serving a life sentence in a prison in China. So he was actually the first person in China of Chinese citizen, well, who has a Chinese passport, obviously, who after the Cultural Revolution that was sentenced to life as a political prisoner. He was the first one, not just Uyghurs, or it's among all the entire China. He was the first one who was sentenced to life, and he was sentenced for separatism related charges. So the government accused him for being a separatist who is trying to apart the country, who is trying to advocate violence and being an extremist, etc. But so that was 2014, when he was taken away from our home when he was arrested, and that's also the arrest of the detention of my father was also a sign to many Uyghurs that the situation is going really, really down from this moment. So I cannot say the situation was perfect before my father was arrested. The reason my father was arrested because he was speaking up. He was doing what I'm doing now, but the difference is he was doing it in China. That's because he was doing what I've been doing now is because he saw a problem and he wanted to fix it, and he was talking to the government officials in order to provide solutions. He was an economics professor in China, and all he does was to do researches and talk to different scholars and go to different countries, different regions, just to find out statistic and how you can develop the region, the Uyghur region, well, which in Chinese it is called Xinjiang, but Uyghurs, special overseas, they prefer to call the region as East Turkestan. And I call it Uyghur region most of the time. So for but a person like my father, who has a very moderate voice, who had never advocated for violence, who had never talked about separating the country, but only talked about how can he bound Chinese people with Uyghur people, Han Chinese people to Uyghur people, how can they not stop having those stereotypes, negative stereotypes against each other, how can they stop, there were some hate going on, and how can they can diminish those facts. But all what my father was doing was trying to help, but the government didn't like it because my father attracted too much attention I believe that's one of the reasons that he attracted too much attention, not only in China, but also overseas. For past decades, China has been hiding the Uyghur region from the international world. So a lot of people had heard about Tibetans because of Dalai Lama or because of other reasons. But when you said Uyghurs, are there Muslims in China? I didn't know. I'm sure like you probably haven't heard of Uyghurs until very recently, right?
Exactly. And now you're
Yes.
surprising me to say that this has been going on for decades now.
Yes, but it's just going, so the situation is sometimes good, sometimes bad, sometimes worse, and sometimes get better. So it's like on and off, depends on who is in charge in the region.
I see.
Who is the bureaucrat, who is the ruler. It's usually how
Alright.
it really depends. Things have gone really, really downhill since starting from 2014, 15-ish, but we didn't realize until 2016, 2017. And that was a time because it's been going on and off. So we kind of got used to the fact that, sometimes our family members are taken away or disappeared for a few months and released. It's something that is almost like a norm for the Uyghur people, that you might have family members taken away and be sent back and then, get questioned for certain things you say, certain activities you do. It's almost became a normality until 2017. We realized, okay, this is going insane. This is not normal anymore. In the past, maybe we would talk about, did you know that person who spoke out about this and that got detained for a month or sentenced for 3 years? That used to be our conversation, but now, our uncle, our sisters, our descendants, they're all taken away. So every Uyghur, I'm not being exaggerating, every Uyghur that you meet, or just basically every Uyghur, at least have one family members, at least have one person they know that they are locked up, either in prison or in concentration camps or in labor camps. At least one. And I know someone who has 89 family members are locked up.
Wow.
89. So like almost the entire family. So because we Uyghurs usually have bigger families than each, I'm sure in Middle East it's
the same here. Yeah.
You have like 4 siblings, each siblings have like 4 children, so it became like 70.
It's not even like that. Like my dad has 14 siblings from one mother, and my grandpa got married a lot.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's like, that's a lot. 89 is like.
Yes. So I also know another person who has like 60 or 70 family members who are locked up, and for me, I have a few. I have maybe 4 or 3 or 4 of them
that are locked.
That are locked. Only based on my knowledge, since I am completely cut off my communication with my families in the Uyghur region. It is a crime to contact someone overseas now. It is almost, if your signal have detected that because every social media applications or your phone, everyone's phone are being monitored by the local authorities. So if they have detected that you're talking to someone overseas, you probably will not get arrested immediately, but they're going to listen to what you say. And if you're releasing some information that they don't want you to know or the other people to know, then
that's when they take action.
Then this is the end of their freedom. Yes.
But ever since the beginning of after the Maoist movement in China and when communism set in place, I believe that Chinese people were never free to begin with, because the government always controlled every aspect of their life, down to how many children they were allowed to have, right? So
yes, that's a fact that I wanted to talk about as well.
So
Sorry,
I think the term they called it was a drone-like civilization, I think is what they called it. As in, they're all like robots. All the citizens are like robots, only working for the Chinese government, and that's their religion is the Chinese state, and I've heard brainwashing, but this is just.
To be honest with you, before coming to the US, I thought I had the freedom. Before coming to the US, I thought the entire world are supposed to live like this.
You used to live in China?
No, I used to live in China. I spent 18 years. I was born and raised in Beijing, which is the capital of China. And I came here that's what I wanted to talk about. So I spent 18 years over there, and before coming to the US, I have accepted education both in China and in the US. I went to college for a semester in China until I had to come here. So, and of course I spent middle school, high school all in China. And I didn't know that my freedom was so limited until coming here. I thought this is how everybody lives. I thought this is the normality. I thought this is how life was supposed to be until coming to the US, until traveling to different countries and knew, oh my God, my first 18 years, oh my God. And I just had those shocks, like those realizations. So the reason I ended up being in the US was a coincidence, was a bureaucratic mistake. I wasn't planning to come to the US for this long. I was only planning to stay for 3 weeks to 4 weeks because my father was invited by Indiana University as a visiting scholar, and I was just planning to help him come during my we call it winter vacation in China because it's winter break. Yeah, so well apparently here they call it Christmas break, but anyways, it was my winter break, and I was just, well, I have 1 month for free. It's cold. Where am I gonna go? What am I gonna do? I'm just probably just accompanying my dad to help him settle down since he's going to be away from us for more than a year. So I planned to stay for 3 weeks. I only had a suitcase packed with 3 weeks clothing, and but my father was arrested at the airport, and I was 18 years old. As a teenager, I appeared to have no threat to the authorities, so they kind of ignored me. I said, if you want to go, you can go, but your dad is not leaving. So my father made sure that I could leave, and made sure, even though I refused to leave, my father said, no, you have to take the chance. I would rather you sweep the street in the US than you staying here. That's what my father said. And he just pushed me, and that's how I ended up being here, having a free but unfree life, because I am free to say what I want to say, but I'm also not free because I do still have concerns with my words because how it might affect my family. I always have to think of how it will affect them, because those people, my families, my friends, they're still living in that country that is not free. And yeah, that started 2013, and my father was officially taken away, detained in 2014.
2014
for life.
For life, yes.
Do you know where he is?
So my father's so there's a hukou system in China, which is the residence paper system. Usually if you commit any crime, or if you want to go make any legal documentations, or to require for any, literally if you want to go through anything legal with a legal process, you will have to go to the government system that is shown as what is on your birth certificate, or like what's on your resident paper. My father's resident paper belonged to Beijing, so he moved to Beijing when he was like a teenager, and so if he were to commit any crime, he's supposed to go through the trial in Beijing, which the legal system is more completed and they're just better than the rest of the regions, the provinces, because it's the capital of China, and it has international committees, attentions, etc. But the government transferred my father from Beijing to the Uyghur region, which is so far away from the entire entire
Yeah,
mainland
it's like
China.
under the radar kind of.
It's in order to travel back to my hometown from Beijing, it's 7 hours flight, by the way. It's like
Flight,
going from
wow.
DC to Los Angeles. That's how far it is. So they took my father from Beijing to Urumqi, which is like also pretty far. It's like 4 hours flight away. But anyways, and my father's birth certificate I mean, my father's resident paper does not belong to Urumqi, but he was taken away to Urumqi, and he went through the trial over there. He was sentenced there, and he's still serving as his sentence over there at Urumqi First Prison. At least that was the last, based on my last knowledge, he was in Urumqi First Prison. But since 2017, I haven't heard anything of him.
Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna pull up the map, as you can see in front of us. So China is a very big, like very, very big country, right? Like the land mass is huge. So here we have
Beijing, top right.
top right, Beijing. That's the capital, right? And he's in the. This is where they brought your dad for trial.
A little left. Yeah, like you see the
Xinjiang.
Yeah, that
Right
which is
here.
next to Kyrgyzstan, and you see the Urumqi right there on top.
Oh, on top of it.
Right
Yeah,
there.
that's where my father was taken to. So all the way,
That's
down
far.
there.
That's about equidistant from like, I don't know. That's right here is Beijing. Right here is where your dad was taken. That's almost like me going from, because I live here in Kuwait. So it's like me going from here to around like somewhere here.
Yeah.
Italy, maybe, you know. So that's a long flight, you know. But it's obvious, like you don't even need to explain why they did this, right? They took him all the way there because it's out of the radar, out of sight from the general international public, you know. He was literally free game over there. It was easier for them to do whatever they wanted to do, and obviously that, like, I don't know what to say. I'm not gonna lie, because you coming here, it's hard for me to listen to you talk about all these stories, right? So I know it's much harder for you to talk about this. So, wow, I'm sorry to hear that this happened to your dad, and this is all because, like, he spoke out, right?
And he's a well-educated Uyghur man, and some people would call him the voice of the Uyghurs at that point, because there weren't many Uyghurs were able to speak out in China at that point.
Is it because they're not like educated in English? Like, you speak English pretty
well. I learned it after coming here. I didn't speak English before coming to the US. I learned it like 6 or 7 years ago. But my father spoke English, but in most of his interviews he would use Chinese. But I mean, there are lots of educated Uyghur scholars, but because there were just very few Uyghurs living in mainland China, I mean in mainland China, Beijing, Shanghai, those areas. And as I mentioned earlier, in the Uyghur region, there's just less freedom over there, and also less international community's attention. So even if you want to talk about it, there's no one you can go reach out to. If you try to, you get detained immediately. And people have always kind of lived in fear of, so they kind of live in, okay, if they want to speak about it, they go in little indirect way. But my father was always right out there and reaching out to journalists, and then and reaching out to and he even built a website himself. It's called uighurbiz.com. You should still be able to find the database. It's shut down, but you should still be able to find the database online now. So he created this website for people all around the world, not only in China, but also all around the world, to be able to learn about who Uyghurs are, to let Chinese people to know who Uyghurs are. And Uyghurs are not what the government, or the state-backed media says, those non-educated.
What do they say?
So usually, the state-backed media, when you watch, everything is censored, right? So when you watch a video clip, it's always Uyghurs who wearing something like really ancient style, or just wearing like a skin, like animal skin or leathered stuff, and then buried with muds on their face, or and then riding camels on the desert. So this is how usually people. I remember I've been asked by my Han Chinese friends in Beijing, do you they asked me, in Xinjiang, do people ride camels to school? It was just sound like when people ask Chinese people, do everybody practice kung fu? It was a question like that, and then
It's ridiculous. Yeah.
yeah, and then I would joke, yeah, not only camels, we have to ride horses too. And we'd be like joking, and they're like, oh my God, I love horses. And they actually took it seriously.
So what's it really like how do you describe?
Just like everywhere else.
Just like everywhere else.
It's a normal town.
Like,
Yeah, dude.
yeah, just like everywhere else. I mean, yes, we do have camels, but in the tourist areas, tourism areas, and then
Just like Kuwait, by the way, we do have camels, but like
yeah,
it's
but not everybody.
out in the desert or in our like stables. It's not like I'm gonna walk down the street and see a camel or walk
Yes,
by for no
exactly.
reason.
Exactly.
So yeah, no, okay. So now excuse my ignorance, but like China's good at covering things that are happening on their grounds. But what was it that your dad has spoken out about exactly? So what did he talk about?
He was advocating for peaceful coexistence with Han Chinese and Uyghurs. No one is better than the other. We're all equally the same. We should deserve the same opportunity. And also Uyghur's language, our mother tongue, should not be taken away. By the way, Uyghur language is a completely different system compared to Han Chinese.
Wow.
It's a Turkic language. We also have, you can tell from my name, Johar, it's Arabic name, right?
Johar Alham,
Yeah.
I mean diamond or jewel.
Also essence, right? So
yeah, I think so.
essence,
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. Jawhara will be diamond, and if Jawhar, it
Diamond.
will be essence. Yeah. Like,
True.
Yeah. So for my dad, his name is Ilham, is also Arabic, even though in Arabic it's a girl's name, but in Uyghur it's a guy's name, Ilham. And then, you know, we have a different language system, and we have a different culture. Our culture is completely different too.
It's Islamic, I believe.
Yes. So Uyghurs tend to not wear very revealing clothes, and culturally, and then, you know, some women prefer to wear hijab, had scarves, and but because of the pressure, less and less women wear it in China. Well, now it's obviously not allowed anymore. You will, if you have a beard or if you have a headscarf, you just basically it's your ticket to a concentration camp. Yes.
Okay.
So
let me just warn now. Okay, so everything we've talked to far is just like very, very surface. So to the viewers who do really feel uncomfortable about these stuff, even though I encourage you to fight that uncomfortness, like our friend Johar here is, and to sit and listen. But if you still feel like you don't want to watch, now's the time to click off. If you're listening on Spotify, now's the time to, change, because we're about to get deep. Right. So, the concentration camps.
yes. So having a beard, having a hijab on, and refuse to drink alcohol can all be like tickets for you to be sent to a concentration camp. Now they even have feast at the mosque during Ramadan for Han Chinese to sit and drink alcohol and eat pork together. There were leaked videos during Ramadan. If you were found that you were fasting, then I don't know what's the word for it. You just
like you're done. You're locked up. You're gone.
Yes. So yeah, this is what is happening right now. My first complete fasting was in the US, which is very ironic. My first time going to an actual mosque was in the US. My first time actually open up Quran was in the US. So it's very ironic. I know it's just
excuse me for getting a bit personal here, but like, how was it the first time you went to a mosque, the first time you opened the Mus'haf Sharif and you read, and the first, like, describe that feeling for me.
It was weird, to be honest. I wanted to laugh and cry at the same time.
It was that joy.
It's like I don't know how to explain in English. It's just it was a very weird feeling.
Overwhelming.
And also, so to be honest, I more than identified myself as culturally Muslim before coming to the US because I was not really exposed to Islam that well. I knew I was Muslim. I knew I can't eat pork. I knew I'm not supposed to drink alcohol. I never done any of this, but I didn't know why I shouldn't do it. I didn't know, like I just, oh, okay, well, my parents didn't do it, so okay, that's probably what I'm going to do. Well, I'm not going to do either. So, but after coming to the US, my American friends were the ones who taught me what is the reason why pork is not allowed in Islam, why alcohol is not allowed, why, like, like all kinds of things, like what is taboo, why is not taboo, and then all of this. It was fascinating to me, and I wish that experience happened when I was in China, when I was in school. I wish my best friends, by the way, most of my friends were Han Chinese. I love them. They're great friends. I still have to emphasize that so many times. They're great friends. Until now, I'm still in touch with some of them, and they've been very supportive and etc. So I wish I was able to share all of those experiences with my friends in China when I was in China. That would be really great. But now I had to do it kind of alone without my family, but I'm also glad I'm finally able to do it freely. Now I'm fasting almost every Ramadan, trying my best to do that. And then the first time was hard. I'm sure it's difficult for everyone, but now I think it's a great feeling that nobody can stop you from what you want to do.
It's amazing.
Anymore. Yeah,
Amazingly
it's amazing.
said.
Yeah.
Wow. It's like,
I mean, the freedom to practice religion is one of the fundamental principles of the United States.
Basic human
Of the world.
rights.
Yeah.
Like it's amazingly disgusting to hear that this is what's been going on in China, right? It's like
So I'm currently working on a documentary film. So it includes 3 storylines. I'm assisting one of the storyline, which is about the Uyghurs. So because of this film, I had to interview many camp survivors or family members of detainees or former detainees, etc. So I have heard some really disturbing stories, and people might be like, oh, maybe they faked the stories, but I have interviewed so many that they all have mutual information, that there's no way that they would be calling each other saying, hey, let's talk about
because
this
they don't know each other, right?
Yeah. So because of
Take your time. It's completely fine. Take your time. It's fine.
So just I'm going to start sharing a few of the stories I heard. Okay. One woman told me that they were forced to take off their clothes, be naked in front of people, and the guard, obviously they're men, would say, you should not be ashamed of your body. You should not be ashamed of being naked in front of people. And they were trying to brainwash those women to what they claim is make them less of an extremist, less
like conservative is like traditional.
Yeah, right? It just I mean, I don't know, I'm sure there are some people prefer to be walking naked outside, but
yeah, it's not out here. Let me just say this. The reason we cover up is because of modesty, right? It's mainly because of modesty. It's not because we are ashamed of our body, or it's not because women should be ashamed of their body. But the whole point is to practice the simple, like modest behaviors instead of. So we're not saying anything against people who are all about nudism and things like that. It's just that this is how we are, just like you guys.
You can't force people.
If people want to be shirtless, okay, let them be. But if people prefer to be covered up, let them be. So
Exactly.
those women were forced to be completely naked, completely, as really completely. And the older women are considered as, they're grateful for being older because they can somehow escape the gang rapes. The younger ones are not that lucky. So according to my testimony, there was one young girl, according to the testimony that I heard, one young girl was raped too hard. She could barely sit on the chair. And because she fell off the chair, she got beaten up more for that, because she fell off the chair. And also, I also have heard from those detainees that they are forced to all sit together as a group, and the guards would pick up random like girls from them and would rape in front of those detainees.
The rest of, oh my God.
And if those detainees look away or show that they can't look anymore, or they are being bothered by it, that means they are not brainwashed fully. It means that their minds are not cleansed well, and they still remain extremist thoughts. So they will get tortured more. And also, I also have survivors telling me that all of them have mentioned about they were fed with unknown medicines, that they have no idea until now what those medicines were for. That and also that when they have those medicines are usually the only time that they're allowed to have water. And those water are so not clean, they even look kind of milky because they're so dirty. It's not even clean, drinkable, filtered water. But they would still die to drink it, because that's literally the only time they can have water. Usually they get water twice a week or very few times a week. And so after they eat the medicine, they will feel really weak. They don't have any energy, and women stop having their what is it called in English? Women will, yes, and they will less likely to get pregnant. And also, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Take your time. Honestly, take your, because I need to absorb everything you're saying, because it's really hard to listen. So I can't even imagine, like.
Also, the one story that whenever I start telling it, every time I've told it 10 times, every time I still feel very uncomfortable, but I do think it's deserved to be told to people. It's deserved to be known to people. So Mehergo Tursun, it's a mother of triplets, 3 babies. And so she married to an Egyptian guy in Egypt. She had her master's degree in Egypt, and she lived there for many years, and she newly gave birth to this triplets. So she wanted in our culture, when women give birth, either the family members come to visit you if you're living in another place, or you would bring the baby back to let the parents
to them.
to let them see. So obviously it was harder for people to travel outside of the Uyghur region. So she decided to travel back to see her parents, to let basically her children to see her grandparents. Of course, and triplets, it's pretty rare.
Harder to travel with one baby, let alone 3.
Yeah.
But the moment she arrived in the Uyghur region, she was shackled, detained, and put on black sack on her head, and she was taken away, including her 3 triplets. She was
what
detained.
Happened to the triplets?
Yeah, so she was detained total of 9 months. She was released in between one time, and her head was shaved, and she was beaten, questioned, indoctrinated, and then like before getting food, they have to sing the music songs that praise the Communist Party, like, oh, the Communist Party is the best, something like that, for like 3 times, then they can get food. So she said the reason she was released was because her babies were Egyptian citizens, and apparently her husband was reaching out, tried to find out where she was, and he was contacting the embassies, like, well, my wife disappeared for 9 months, and my children as well. It's supposed to be a family visit, and she's gone. So, and I think the government in China, the authorities in the Uyghur region allowed her to leave, put on makeup for her, and asked her to record a video and say, I have never been tortured here. I came studying, and I did not like experience anything negative. Like, she was forced to record a full statement like that. Otherwise, she was not allowed to leave. So of course she would say, yes, I never got beaten and tortured.
Yeah, I mean,
so
it's
when
a
she
no-brainer.
released, yes, and when she was released, so the government said, you will have to deliver your babies back to Egypt, and you have to come back immediately. Otherwise, we will detain your rest of your families. So you have to give us your promise. And she said, okay. And she agreed. And that's what she was planning to do as well. So she wanted to drop her kids to her husband and would come back in order to secure her family's safety. And but when she got out, she had to go to the hospital to pick up her babies. There were only 2 of them. The third one, they handed her the cold body, and it had a scar over here, a surgery scar, and the baby was dead. Obviously she wasn't allowed to ask why and what happened. So, but she had triplets, but she went back with twins, and she could not try to find out what happened to the third one, because she has to try to make sure the other 2 are safe and alive. So she went back to Egypt with her 2 babies and found out her husband was gone, because sorry.
It's okay.
Sorry, like, just her face kept coming to my mind whenever
know.
I interviewed her, so I just...
It's okay, just take your time.
So she went back to Egypt and found her husband was gone, because her husband traveled to China in order to look for her, but her husband disappeared. So she realized, okay, I cannot drop my kids to just let them live alone here. And she told me how sorry she felt to her parents, because she made the promise of going back, but for her children, in order to secure her children's safety, she said, I contacted the US government and I skipped to the US, because I knew Egypt could not make me safe and could not make sure my children are safe. So she was able to come to the US with her twin babies. When I interviewed her, she was still in trauma. She was shaking. She could not stop shaking. She was having almost like a seizure. Because it was so hard for her. When I talked to her, it was already a few months after what happened to her, and she was already getting better, because she got offered with a therapist by the US government. She was constantly seeing therapists, and then she was already a lot better, but even a lot better version of her
was still going through.
When you see her, you will know what I'm talking about.
All right, when does this come out?
Hopefully next February. We're still looking for fundings to wrap up the film.
All right.
Inshallah, we'll get it out by next Feb.
Obviously, if you haven't guessed by now, Ali, I think we're just gonna do this. This is gonna be a 2-part series, because there's still a lot to talk about, and we're almost out of time. So we're gonna keep rolling, but this is the cutoff point.
I can't sit there and do nothing. So a few years ago, so many Uyghurs might not expect this kind of thing could happen to so many people, and it is happening. In the beginning, Tibetans didn't think it could happen to them. The Inner Mongolians didn't think it could happen to them. Hong Kongers didn't think it could happen to them. And see what is happening to them now. And it could happen to the next person, next region, or next country. China is already influencing other countries. They're helping Turkey to train their policemen. They have asked Egyptian government to deport 500 Uyghur students. What else they can do?